Hi everyone. Today I'm going to share a very authentic Bangladeshi recipe with you that I grew up eating. It's a delicious, moist, saucy chicken recipe with fluffy, flavorful rice with eggs to top it off. It's not very spicy and has Middle Eastern influences to it, as you'll see in my video. If you follow my tips in this video, you can definitely replicate exactly what I experienced as a child growing up, and I can't wait to share that with you. By the way, I'm using short grain rice here called Kali Jira, which is a very fragrant, authentic Bangladeshi rice that you can perhaps find in a Bangladeshi grocery store near you. But in case you can't, you can substitute it with any other short grain rice or even long grain rice like basmati if you prefer. So let's get started. So I'm taking 3.5 cups of the short grain rice and washing it very thoroughly until the water runs clean. This is to ensure that the rice comes out fluffy and evenly cooked, just like how I mentioned it earlier. So I'm going to soak this. Now I'm chopping some white onions. And I'm mincing some fresh ginger. You can definitely buy store-bought blended or minced ginger, completely okay, either way. Now I'm getting 2 different spices. So I have half a teaspoon of nutmeg, which I'll use a pestle and mortar to mix with about maybe less than 1 mace piece. And this is because it's very overpowering, both of these spices. So I really want to make sure the chicken tastes nice with these flavors, but isn't overpowered. So this is enough for 3.5 cups of rice and all the chicken we're going to cook. So I'm taking some chicken breasts now and cutting them into somewhat medium-sized pieces and slashing them as well, so there's maximum flavor that gets into them. I normally don't like using breasts for this recipe, but some guests prefer that, boneless breast pieces. So just trying to make everyone happy. I'm also going to cut some slashes through the drumsticks. So in total, I have about maybe 10 to 12 pieces for this recipe for serving about 10 people. It is a potluck dinner, so there's going to be a lot of other items. But if this is essentially your main dish in a party, I would make a little bit more per person. And I'm slashing through the thighs as well. Over here I have a cup of milk and I'm squeezing a slice of lime into it to make homemade yogurt or buttermilk. Just to replace yogurt, I didn't have it at home, so this is a quick tip for you if you don't have yogurt. Now I'm soaking a pinch of saffron in water, and this will be soaked in the water until the rest of the recipe is made, and this is for the end of the recipe. So let's start cooking. I added about 1.5 cups of onion, white onion preferably, in oil, and a couple tablespoons of ghee to add that beautiful flavor. And I'm also going to add some whole dry spices. So I'm adding a couple bay leaves. And I like to fry the onions before I add the garlic and ginger mince. That's just a preference. I'm adding maybe 4 to 5 cardamoms are good enough. Some cloves, about 8. And some white pepper, about 7 to 8. And you can definitely use black pepper too, but since this is a kind of a light colored curry, I like to keep things on the lighter side. And that's also the same reason I use white onions instead of red onions or sweet onions. I'm also adding about 3 small sticks of cinnamon. So you can see some Middle Eastern spices here. So now I'm going to fry it really well before adding the minced ginger and garlic. Mince is fine for a curry, but for rice, I definitely want to use blended. Now I'm adding 2 teaspoons of cumin and 2 teaspoons of coriander, and that's the end of our spice to the chicken part of the recipe. I also added shah zira, which is not captured in this video. That's basically a black cumin. Maybe a pinch is sufficient. So I add the chicken after sauteing that mix for 7 to 8 minutes. And I put the chickens, like drumsticks and the thighs with bone, in first because that does take longer to cook, and I also don't want the breast to dry out. So I add them last in a layer. You can see here at a different angle for different colors. So I add that spice mix with the nutmeg and mace now. And it's been about 15 minutes or so. And I'm also adding that yogurt mix I made. So it's been maybe 15, a little bit more, and you can see the water has come out of the chicken. And at this point, I will take the chicken pieces out of the curry. By no means is the chicken done cooking, but I definitely want to spend some time to thicken the gravy and make sure the oil has come out and is floating on top of the gravy, which you can see visually in a little bit. I don't want to cook the chicken while this is happening because this can definitely overcook the chicken, especially the breast pieces. But even if we didn't use breast pieces, I would definitely recommend doing this step because this definitely ensures a juicy, moist chicken with all these flavors going to go in and pierce the meat. Now I'm going to leave the whole spices in the sauce and let the curry thicken a little bit further. I'm also going to taste, so I need a little bit more salt to adjust. I'm going to sprinkle some salt on the chicken first because it's still hot. It will absorb the salt really well. And I'm also definitely going to add salt to the sauce because that's the main part of the dish. I'm additionally adding a few teaspoons of sugar to taste, so definitely taste to your liking. It's not very sweet, this dish authentically, but it does have a little bit sweet side to it. So you can see now that the oil has floated on the top after about maybe 10 to 15 minutes. So I'm going to take out all those whole spices and put the hard-boiled eggs in half. I definitely want to be delicate because I don't want the yolks to break, so I just spoon the sauce over, and this adds an additional flavor to the egg when we put these on the rice dish finally at the end. Some people like to have it whole. I just have them because it adds more flavor. So now I'm going to put the chicken back to this thicker sauce. This is the consistency I like and which ensures the moistness of the rice. Some people like the gravy to be a little bit thicker, so it's really up to you, but I would recommend using a very juicy, saucy consistency rather than a thick gravy for this, so that the rice, all the rice we're going to cook will get enough sauce throughout the whole dish. So here's where the chicken's going to finish cooking, and we'll leave it until we prepare the rice. Now we're going to prepare the rice. So in a large, tall pan, add a little bit of oil, maybe couple tablespoons of ghee, and not too much onion, maybe a 1/4 cup of an onion, white onion again. We don't want to fry this too much because we want to make sure the rice itself is very white. That's the authentic part of it. We're going to add a couple bay leaves again, some cloves, maybe 4 to 5, a couple cinnamon sticks, cardamom, and again, cumin, black cumin. And I added a couple tablespoons of garlic and ginger mince as well before I add the rice, which I've drained for a bit so that there's no water left. So you can see how dry it is even after soaking for a while. So this ensures extra fluffiness and separation. And then I added a teaspoon and a half of salt just to taste. The chicken and the sauce will have salt too, so you have to be careful with how much salt you add to the rice. Now I'm adding about 5 1/4 of boiling water. So the ratio I use is 1 cup rice to 1.5 cups boiling water. And using boiling water is extremely important. So when the water starts boiling again at this point, I'm going to turn the stove down to medium heat. Finally, I'm adding a few drops, maybe 7 to 8 drops of rose water. Not too much because this also can be a very strong flavor. So you can see how fluffy that rice is. So I'm going to layer that on a tall cylindrical pan because there's so much food coming with the layers in the chicken. I'm going to make a layer first at the bottom because you want that bottom rice to have all the juices and the sauce from the chicken. So now I'm going to create my first layer of chicken with some drumsticks, a mix of different pieces, and some of the sauce as well. So now it's going to drip through the rice and create that flavor together and just be very cohesive together. And not having that whole spice in either the rice or the chicken, because I am removing it while I'm layering, also prevents from that really strong bite of a whole spice in your mouth. And it's not a good texture as well. So I removed those as well. So finally, after the full layer, I'm adding a little bit of salt extra just to make sure it's salted enough. And that saffron water, I pierced some holes through the whole pot just so it goes through the whole length of the pot. And this will add another flavor to it that's extraordinary. Finally, laying the eggs on top of the rice. So you can see that sauce that we cooked it in is still there adhering to the eggs. So it's just going to be beautiful together. So that's it. That's how you make authentic Bangladeshi chicken roast pulao rice with moist, delicious, saucy chicken absorbed into the fluffy, flavorful rice, topped with hard-boiled eggs drenched in that delicious sauce. I really hope you try this recipe. I know it's a lot of steps and lots of ingredients, but you can ask any questions on substitutions or simplifying on the comment section and I'll be happy to answer. Thank you so much for watching through the end of the video. I know it was a long one. I'll continue to add more videos on authentic Bangladeshi food like the ones you see on this table and even more. So please like, subscribe, and continue to follow my channel for more updates. Thank you.